Everybody loves Curry. He's putting up the best numbers of his career. Of course, this year, everybody's putting up offensive numbers. Are you surprised at he's literally gone up another level than his entire career? They're a bad team when he doesn't play. Are you a little surprised by it?
Overall, they are exactly where I thought they would be. I thought they would be fighting for a play-in spot, and that's exactly where they are. In terms of what he's doing, scoring-wise, what he's done in expanding his three-point range, the attention that he's getting, I mean, it's remarkable that he's making the shots that he's making. And the percentages bear that out. But you said all his numbers have gone up. And that is not true. Every other aspect of his game is suffering, whether it's because of the talent around him or simply because it takes so much energy to take the shots that he's taking. His assist-to-turnover ratio is the worst of his career. His defensive rating is the worst of his career. So I know people have fallen in love with what Steph is doing, and I myself am amazed at the shots that he's able to make with the attention that he's receiving. But let's not confuse that with he's having an all-around great performance at this point. He's not doing that.
So I look at Brooklyn, and I've said this. We tend to fall in love with pretty teams. Gonzaga was pretty. Baylor was tough. Kansas City was pretty. Tampa Bay's defense was tough. It's hard to win a title when you're pretty, but you don't have an edge to you. When the Warriors were pretty, they still had Clay and Draymond defensively and Andre Iguodala off the bench. The Bulls could be pretty, but they were a great defensive team. I look at Brooklyn. They're really pretty, but they haven't played together. Katie's hurt again. Kyrie's still erratic. It's funny. I think we're falling for they're the best watch in the league, but I think they struggle with Andre Drummond. What about Embiid or Giannis? So what do you make of this team that has played essentially, if you look at the minutes their big three have played together, it's like 4 games. It's insane. Yeah. What do you make of them going into the playoffs?
So there's 2 parts to this. First of all, Colin, I'm glad to have you come on board. I've been saying this since the beginning of the year, that I expected them to be the most explosive offense. I expected that to produce a great regular season. But the game slows down and becomes more physical in the postseason. We've seen that happen with James Harden time after time after time. He's a wonder in the regular season. Well, they call the game a little bit different during the regular season. You're getting to the free throw line a lot more often than you are in the postseason. And they simply don't have that. For everybody who says, they got all these closers, and how are you going to stop all these closers? Well, how are they going to stop anybody? We just saw this against the Miami Heat. Without Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat outscored them 8-0 in the final 3.5 minutes. And I know James Harden wasn't there, Kevin Durant wasn't there. But neither one of those guys, maybe Kevin Durant to a certain extent, but James Harden isn't going to suddenly change your defense in the final 2 minutes. And Kevin Durant can, but he has to be healthy and willing to do that. So I'm glad to hear that. Now, this is the issue that I have overall with the league, is that it has now become a thing where not playing is somehow a benefit to being a better team in the postseason. Like, when did that happen? I'm right now, I wish they would institute a rule. You know what? If you're going to be out, then you can't sit on the bench styling your fits. I know it's all supporting the team and all that. I'm just tired of seeing all these superstars who are cashing out on the sidelines, dressed to the nines, and aren't playing 10, 15 games at a time, and we're all looking at it going, these guys are really sharp. They're not playing. They're saving it all for the end. Let's see how well that ultimately works out. I know it happened last year. Let's not take anything from the bubble and think that formula is going to work in a season like this.
But let's segue the Lakers, though. AD's history is he's not going to give you 82 games. And I would make an argument the Lakers are just saying, big fella, come back with 6 to play and go. Could I not argue that in the Lakers' case it works?
You could, simply because they have a little more institutional knowledge. These guys have been there. They've done it together. But you're still asking AD and LeBron to go from 0 to 60. And this is a little bit different than last year, again, in the shutdown. because they had those first 8 games. They were already seeded where they wanted to be seeded. They could cruise through those 8 games and get dialed up. And oh, by the way, everybody else was starting from that position. And AD and LeBron weren't coming back from injury. They were coming back from a shutdown. So I feel it's a little bit different. It works better for them than it does for the Nets. But I still believe that there is a chemistry that has to be developed, a mental toughness collectively that has to be developed by playing together, and particularly at the offensive end. What's been demonstrated is that they rely so heavily on LeBron James to be that playmaker. They miss Rajon Rondo, for sure. So the question is, can LeBron come back from this, and can he suddenly ratchet up to the point where he's got to be Mr. Everything again offensively to get everybody their shots? That's the roll of the dice that they're playing with. Do I think it has a possibility of working out for the Lakers? Yes, I do. But I still don't believe that not playing for this length of time with key parts of your team missing is a formula for success.
Okay, I put up my MVP rankings earlier because I think it's about most valuable player, and I'd give it to Chris Paul, who has 11 straight winning seasons. And yeah. I'm a journalist. This is journalism on this show.
Thinking out of the box.
Well, Phoenix has been a tire fire for 11 years. 3 of those with Devin Booker. So I put Chris Paul number 1. Then I have Jokic. I'm a huge Butler fan, Steph. LeBron, you don't want to hear my LeBron argument. You have Jokic 1, Giannis. So you have Chris Paul behind Joel Embiid. Here's my argument. The Sixers have won this year. Sometimes when Joel misses games, they win. Phoenix can't win without Chris Paul. So why do you have Embiid ahead of Chris Paul?
Essentially because I think that he makes a bigger impact at both ends of the floor. Chris Paul's, and this is what's difficult, and I don't have a problem, I have a little bit of a problem with him being number 1. The difficulty here is that all of these MVP candidates are flawed in some way. Harden and Embiid have missed too many games. Chris Paul, it's difficult to quantify what he does because so much of what he does, they're intangibles. And so how do you measure that? You can measure it and say, well, they're basically the same as last year, except last year they were, 34 and 39, and now they have one of the best records in the Western Conference. Okay, how much do we give to Chris Paul? And you're going to laugh, but how much do we give to Jay Crowder? Because I'll tell you that the Miami Heat are missing him in a big way. So how much do we just give in the natural evolution of DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker being such young players, or Bridges? So that's where it's difficult for me to quantify exactly what Chris Paul is doing for them. And if I can't quantify it, how do I compare it to the other MVP candidates? Yeah. I'm not saying he's not an MVP candidate. He is.
Okay.
But
yeah,
number 1.
All right. Well, I'm very gutsy. I put myself out there, Bucher. I got to go. Ric Bucher, Fox Sports. Good seeing you, buddy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.